Yeah, welcome to Ask This. We're going to get more on Donald Trump being elected President of the United States, the 45th President of the USA. Viewers have been sending in questions with the hashtag BBC Ask This. And to answer some of your questions this afternoon, we have Dr. Leslie Vinjamuri, who's Associate Fellow in the United States and America's programme at Chatham House. So very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Let's see if you can answer some of our viewers' questions.
Good question.
We've actually had hundreds and hundreds, but we've just got a small selection. And Mike Hammond is asking, how's Donald Trump going to cope with the fact he wasn't elected with an overall majority? In other words, he had a majority in the Electoral College, but in terms of the popular vote, Hillary Clinton actually had the majority, and also the civil unrest that we've seen in some cities and a lot of protests on the streets.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because, of course, we see him as somebody with an ego that needs to be protected and taken care of and looked after, and so it won't feel good. And he's been tweeting, as you know, about the protests. But, I mean, there's not much he can do, is there? I mean, it is a sign, hopefully a sign to him that he's going to have to really rethink the way that he speaks and the policies that he pursues, because he has apparently lost the popular vote. So that is hopefully something that the people, the close circle around him, will be thinking about as they get him to recalibrate and rethink. But this is a man who will take this quite hardly, and it's not going to be easy. But,
he has already
democracy.
shown some signs of seeking a consensus, if you like. I mean, his victory speech was toned right down, wasn't it? He even praised Hillary Clinton for the first time.
It was remarkably conciliatory. It was conciliatory with respect to her. It was conciliatory with respect to all Americans, given the number of people that he has spoken out against, the groups, the minorities. And it was also, interestingly, very conciliatory with respect to the rest of the world. He said, we will work with anybody who would like to work with us. So, you know, whether this is temporary, whether this is good behavior, we'll wait and see. But I think that there's certainly a sense by those around him that he's got to rethink, or it just won't go well. It will go very badly.
Okay, we've got a constitutional question from John Parkinson. Now, the Republicans clearly now control both houses, and the Supreme Court nominee, Donald Trump, will be able to nominate one, maybe more judges there. And so John wants to know, do constitutional checks and balances evaporate? What checks are there?
Yeah, I mean, this has been the fear of those who really did not want to see Donald Trump elected. The Supreme Court has been the #1 concern. The effort to get Merrick Garland through is clearly not going to succeed now. That's one seat that Donald Trump, when he becomes president on January 20th, halfway through the day, will have a huge hand in controlling. There are likely to be 3 more, because there are several members of the court who are quite a bit older, 2 of them on the left, and 1 more in the center. So he won't probably have difficulty getting those through the Senate, because he does have a majority in the Senate. And there are a number of crucial issues on the agenda that could be at risk with respect to federal control, things like marriage equality, abortion rights, might get delegated down to the level of state. So we'll see very different policies across different states on really key issues that are key to many Americans, certainly to those center left. And the other really important thing for the Supreme Court that people had hoped for when they were anticipating that Hillary Clinton would be president, that there would be a revisiting of campaign finance laws, and maybe that Citizens United might be overturned. And, you know, Citizens United, as you know, lifted the caps on corporate and union contributions to campaigns, which has been disastrous, really, in terms of the amount of money going into politics. And I think that's probably no longer really something that will be revisited, given the likely appointments to the Supreme Court. So it's difficult.
Ricardo Mendez is asking, now Trump said he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare, President Obama's reforms of the health system, which have been hugely controversial. What will an Obamacare replacement look like? I guess the answer to that is we don't really have much idea, but
Well, we don't know. I mean, I think this is tragic, and I think especially to a European audience, it's a little bit incomprehensible that you would consider taking away access that many millions of Americans depend on to healthcare. It's inconceivable. What's really interesting is that in the 24 hours after the decision, the election results came in, there was a tremendous spike, the biggest spike that we've seen in people registering to be on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. So I don't think this is going to be as easy to repeal as Donald Trump thinks it will be, right?
But it isn't universal.
Like
just to put the other side of the argument, it's not universally popular, his reforms, Obamacare. And a lot of people say their insurance has shot up as a result. They
say that, but then, but the enrollments speak for it themselves. So there quite likely will be a repeal, but I don't think it's going to be politically without some cost. And so with most of his policies, Donald Trump's now going to have to think about, who is he willing to lose? And given that much of his message was looking out for ordinary Americans, it's a big constituency to lose, especially for a man who might want to get reelected one day.
He's promised ordinary Americans millions of jobs, of course, and Julian Dimitrov wants to know how exactly will Donald Trump bring the manufacturing companies back to the United States?
Yes, Donald Trump is going to take on globalization single-handedly. I mean, this is a difficult project, and to be fair, it's a project that many democracies need to deal with, right? At a bigger level, it's absolutely crucial that the benefits of globalization be captured for more people. Inequality has risen dramatically in the United States but also in the UK. So how does he do it? The options are not great. It means raising tariffs. It means cracking down on immigration to help the wages go up for white workers. But the cost of that's going to be redistributed to the consumer. So it's another set of policies that it's not easy to think how you can actually implement them and remain competitive in a globalized world. But also, who are you going to, who's going to take the cost? So another set of policies that's difficult to think about how you implement them and sustain your popularity and sustain a broad coalition of support. But nonetheless, I do think that the basic instinct that there needs to be a rethinking of how to increase the well-being of middle Americans is actually incredibly important. And it would have been important for a Clinton presidency as well. So this is not unique to Donald Trump.
Right, we've got 2 or 3 more questions. Let's just rattle through them, get some very short answers from you perhaps before we let you go. What will happen to relations with countries that Donald Trump has offended?
You're asking for short answers to tough questions. That's going to be difficult. But again, my basic line on this is that it's very different running a campaign from running a country, and especially a democratic country, and especially a country that's had a major leadership role and has a lot of allies and alliances and is partnering with a lot of institutions. So what's likely to happen, I think, is that he will take a hard line on China, and that's going to have some very potentially catastrophic effects. China's already saying that it's going to put forward its own regional trade agreements, since TPP is now unlikely to go through. But I suspect that his efforts to befriend President Putin are unlikely to be sustainable. That would be my guess.
Yes or no, this one. Can he start a nuclear war without congressional approval?
It is true under the War Powers Act that he only has to go to Congress 60 days after beginning military action, right? And even once military action has begun, so legally, yes, it is true. But politically, that's quite different. And also in terms of actually implementing a decision like that, this is when we start to really worry about who's going to be the Secretary of Defense. Who are the people around him going to be that might exercise restraint? But does he have to go to Congress? No, he doesn't have to go to Congress. Will he do this? It would be shockingly foolish. Hard to imagine.
Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Yes, let's hope it doesn't.
Dr. Leslie Vinjamuri, Associate Fellow in the US and Americas Programme at Chatham House, thank you so much for answering, or trying to answer, our viewers' questions. It'll be fascinating to see how the next 4 years unfold.
If we make it through 4 years, it will be quite extraordinary.
On that note, and thank you also to all of you who got in touch with us with your questions as well.